1. I'm a 20-year-old woman and currently living in a sorority house. Last semester I did not have a roommate, but this semester I decided to room with Candy, a 21-year-old woman, as I felt very isolated by myself and I got along well with her. Me and Candy have known each other since we were kids through a shared sport, and we finally got the chance to get closer being in the same sorority. She would often come to me and vent about her roommate troubles last semester and how they would isolate her, get mad at her for not being there, etc. She also would constantly vent to me about her ex-boyfriend and situations with him. I've always been the therapist friend and struggled with setting boundaries, so honestly our friendship mostly centered around her ranting about her issues and asking me for advice. I looked past this when we decided we would room together, as we shared a lot in common, at least I thought. We have similar sleep schedules, mental health histories, hobbies, and I thought we were pretty similarly natured. Once we started rooming together, everything honestly went pretty well. We honestly didn't see each other that much due to different schedules, but everything was still chill. However, I began to notice weird behavior from her, like her completely ignoring me when we were hanging out with mutual friends, being passive-aggressive and micromanaging me, and an overall air of disrespect towards me. I have my best friend, a 20-year-old woman, and it felt like she would be put off when I was together with her, but at the same time, it felt she did not want me to hang out with anyone, as when there were others, she would act like I'm not there. From the start of the semester, I would spend maybe half the week at my best friend's, also my ex's place, and I honestly didn't think much of it as many girls in my sorority live at their boyfriends' places, so similar principle to me. At one point, after coming in with my bestie and Candy, acting put off, I sent her a text asking her if everything is alright, and if I had done anything to upset her. As she said she was going through her own mental health issues and didn't mean to take it out on me. With this confirmation, I felt better, and as I do have a more avoidant personality, and honestly love being around my bestie and her cat, I stayed with her for a week, which turned into a month, as she was going through some things and I wanted to be there for her. Throughout this time, I would see Candy every once in a while, and she would progressively act more cold and uncaring towards me. Mustering the fakest smile when she saw me, it was one of those weird situations where her behavior physically indicates one thing and her words make things seem fine, as she would still be like hello, etc., but basically giving me the complete silent treatment. Whenever I did run into her, I always led with asking about her day, how she's doing, etc., and trying to signal to her kindness and peace as much as possible, you know? I was met with indifference every time, and I know when someone doesn't want to talk to me, so I would drop it, as I didn't want to annoy her. Anyways, me and my bestie are finally returning back to our typical schedules and ending our really codependent era. And I am planning on finishing the rest of the semester at my actual room. As our schedules don't align, I left a note on her desk asking how I felt things have been awkward and that I care about her as a friend and I didn't mean to make her feel hurt in any way. It wasn't my intention. And I would love to talk about things if there was an issue when she returned. She didn't sleep over that night, but did take the note. She came in this morning and I woke up and she didn't say anything. And when I went to say bye, she had her headphones in, so I don't know if she heard me and did not respond. So that's basically the situation laid out on the table, and I'm trying to present it as neutrally as possible to get someone else's opinion. At this time, I think I've done what I can in my power to reconcile, and I'm trying to focus on my own emotions and what I can control. I just hate drama and tension, especially in my own living space, and with someone I would consider a friend and have no resentment towards. Thank you for listening to all this, if you got to this point. Update: she got arrested. The world works in mysterious ways. Hellfreezer's note: well, I hope the arrest takes her away from you for a good long while, but if it doesn't, and she does end up coming back and living there again, you don't have to be her friend. You can just be civil, basic, very little communication beyond the basic issues that you have to talk about with a roommate, and just kind of ignore each other's existence otherwise. You have other friends outside the room. It can just be a place you sleep and study. It doesn't sound like she's causing many problems otherwise, so if I were you, I'd just ignore her existence otherwise. She doesn't sound like she's worth the effort. 2. For context, I'm a 26-year-old woman, live in a unit with Jay, a 24-year-old man, and Celine, a 24-year-old woman. Jay and Celine are estranged, and Jay's father owns the unit but is managed through a real estate agency. We all pay a third equal share of bills and rent for a room and use the common area. This is in Brisbane, Australia. On Saturday the 20th of last week, I was told by Celine that she and Jay were considering looking for a new flatmate. But I understood and knew this was to mean they wanted to evict me. I didn't respond to this in the best way I could have, but given the circumstances, I was upset. I had told her I understand what she meant, and for her to please leave my room so I could process this privately. She texted me the confirmation of eviction, and we were civil over messages, mostly about splitting of our things, as some of my belongings were being borrowed by them and mixed with theirs and vice versa. Things were fine up until I asked for my room key. Originally, I was in a different room to the one I'm in now. It was formerly Jay's bedroom, from when Jay and Celine were split up, but a few months after they had gotten back together and shared one room. I asked if I could move into Jay's room, as his had a window, and was more spacious, to fit my things better. He and I kept forgetting to swap the keys over until now. I wasn't sure which of them had my room key, as it had been a while, so I asked her if I could swap the keys. She informed me that Jay had the room key, but I was to give her the other room key now, which I didn't want to based on her attitude. I needed the security of being able to keep the belongings in my room safe, and I was more comfortable swapping it with Jay. She didn't appreciate this and responded disproportionately, or at least I think so, by banning me from the use of the microwave, rice cooker, refrigerator, washing machine, and dryer because she interpreted my request as hanging onto the room key I had as leverage. Due to Celine's trauma, she gets paranoia over her stuff being stolen or damaged due to incidents by others in the past. But I believe she's projected this onto me despite my constant reassurance to her that I have no intention of taking or damaging her belongings, as I have experienced similarly. I try to contest this by saying as I am a paying tenant, I should be allowed to use the kitchen and washing facilities, as they are in the common area which we all pay for. To which she said she could use my shelves then, because they're in the common area. It's at this point I hear her rummaging around the place, so I locked my door and stayed in my room, as I really started to feel unsafe for myself and my belongings at this point. Later I realize this was her moving the microwave and rice cooker to her room so I couldn't use them. I called Jay repeatedly and let my partner know of the situation. Jay messaged both of us in the group chat to let us know he was going to try and mediate when he got home. My partner came over and was let in by Celine, thankfully. He helped to calm them down until Jay got home. Half an hour later, Jay got home and swapped the room keys over for us. He went down to talk to Celine, I assume. I left them be so she could tell them her side at least. My partner had gone down to check at some point, but she was still ranting and apparently said some unsavory things about me. I didn't learn about this until later that night when he told me. So we waited some more and went downstairs. They left and came back, and Celine said that no mediation would be made as nothing was changing. I argued with her until she rescinded banning me from the use of the washing machine and dryer. My partner and I left to stay at his place as I didn't feel comfortable to stay that weekend. To make matters worse, after I got my monitor back from her after threatening to report it for theft to the police, because she wouldn't return it when I asked her to, she banned me from the washing machine and dryer again. Yesterday she changed the internet password when the billing period was over and wouldn't let me pay for a new period so I could continue to use it. The tricky part here is she does own the things she's banned my use of. So she does have a legal right to do so, but she's made it functionally very difficult and unreasonable for me to live there until the end of the eviction period, or I move out. I have planned to temporarily stay at a friend's place this coming week, until I find a new rental and to put the rest of my belongings into another friend's garage this weekend. I've yet to write an acknowledgement of eviction letter, but I have a report from my treating psychologist to corroborate my experience here, and how this has affected me that I plan to attach to it. Celine wanted me to give it to her, which I thought was ridiculous as she isn't the owner and has no right to be entitled to the letter acknowledging the eviction. There's more to this, but this is as concise as I can be about the situation, without making it too long or bringing more of our backstory into it. Celine and I used to be friends. I seek advice and guidance on this because this was my first time renting officially, so I'm not knowledgeable of what my rights are here, and if they are being breached, what can I do about them? Hellfreezer's note. Right, I'm confused about a few things here. What does your renter's agreement say? It sounds like you're all equal tenants, so if you are equal tenants, those two cannot decide you're getting evicted. So who decided? Who told you you're getting evicted? And what is the reason for the eviction? I don't believe they can just do it randomly. It would have to be stipulations in the tenancy agreement stating that if you did these things wrong, they could evict you before your tenancy period is up. I'd say it doesn't matter whose father owns the place. Get the management company involved. Speak to them about your concerns. Explain to them what's happening. They might be able to do something to manage the situation for you. If not, I'd look at other legal means. Essentially, I don't want you to put yourself in a position where you might be harmed. Make sure you have a place to go if you need it. But really, you should do everything you legally can to draw this process out and make it as difficult for them as possible, because they're being very hostile towards you, and you must not reward that hostility by capitulating to what they want, but only within legal and safe means. I hope it works out, and please be careful. 3. Starting with my roomie Lenore. She's 20 years old, and I'm female and 19. We've been best friends for about 9 years. I know, mistake to move in with a friend, especially that close. When you say you don't know someone until you live with them, they are right. It started pretty immediately. I noticed my soap bar was slightly out of place whenever I went to shower. My first thought was that Lenore was using it, but I quickly turned down the theory thinking she would never. Well, this kept happening for a few more weeks until one day I finally asked her as she was coming out of the bathroom. She absolutely broke down in tears and started calling herself a horrible person. And it was all just very much. Gross and inconsiderate, sure, but it didn't warrant the blubbering that ensued. Then there was the food. For context, we had previously agreed upon sharing basic things like milk, eggs, butter, condiments. Except when it came to replace those things, I would always be the one paying for it. Another layer of upset is added with the context that I come from a financially turbulent single-parent household and have been working since I was 15. Lenore has the financial support of both parents, and has always been securely middle class, and has never worked a day in her life. Me paying for all the groceries really wore me down quick, especially with Canadian food costs right now. And then there were the 4 weeks of October to mid-November, where she didn't wash her sheets, and every time she opened her door, the stench of human would waft out like a plague tide. Doesn't help that she only showers like once a week. I told her that the room stunk straight up, and she just shrugged at me. There was a sleepover of a friend who couldn't catch a ride home. I didn't know him, and she gave me 20 minutes notice during a break where my legs weren't working due to one of my disabilities. I was also very publicly stalked during our last year or so of high school by an ex's friend, so she knows I don't love guys in the apartment, period. Ultimately, the thing that had me lose my mind was a loaf of bread. I had gotten in the habit of buying cheap bread for both of us to eat, but found this fancy multi-grain loaf that I was hiding to keep for myself. I had been having a great day and just found out I won a scholarship that would cover the whole next semester of tuition fees. And then I come home to find my fancy bread missing slices, when the other bread is perfectly fine and in the fridge. I lost it when she got home, not my proudest moment, but the screaming rant came after 2 previous conversations, soap bar convo and another where I ended up crying because I was sad our friendship was in turmoil. And this was all in 4 months. The following 4 weren't too bad, but maybe I just adjusted. You could get used to blonde hair clumps on the shower walls and always having to clean the microwave. The most egregious incident was when I sent myself to the hospital, tried getting in touch to let her know I'd be there overnight, and she never answered or replied. Although, that's more bad friend stuff and less roommate related. My friend Helga's roommate, on the other hand, Helga's 19, and her roommate, Polina, is 20. Moved into the same res building. From what Helga has told me, Polina never puts bed sheets on her mattress and was just sleeping on the cover. Their place always stank. Lenore's room stench times 100. It was so bad I almost puked just walking in the door. Polina would leave dishes, garbage, and rotting food in their sink in the kitchenette. Aside from making the place a sty, she'd also have loud sex with her boyfriend all the time, yes, on the sheetless bed. And on weekends he basically lived there. Polina was also weirdly jealous of me because Helga and I would hang out and study at my less disgusting place. Polina went as far as to try and sabotage my reputation with some upperclassmen in our program. Helga and Polina and I are all in the same media studies program. She even went so far as to plant the story of upperclassmen talking bad about me with Helga, knowing that she would tell me, and I'd freak. I asked around, and it turns out no one was discussing me until Polina brought me up to complain. Nothing ever happened with that, and I cleared it up with other people, but it's just truly a little pathological and makes my brain itch. The Thursday of our final week of classes, Helga and I did a Walmart run for toilet paper. Turns out she had just bought 4 rolls on Sunday, and Polina had somehow used them all. That's 1 roll per day. Absolutely mind-boggling. That day, we got home around 4 p.m., and Helga put a roll in their bathroom. They were studying at my place till midnight at 10 p.m. Polina texted Helga that she was considering stealing toilet paper from the lobby bathrooms because she'd used the whole roll in 6 hours? She truly needs to be studied in a lab. Lenore and I moved out last week and haven't spoken since. Helga was really there for me through all this, and I for her with her roommate. And that's why she's the closest person to me now. Silver lining, I guess. If you take anything away from this, please let it be this. Do not live with your friends. You will get to know them in ways you never wanted to, and maybe even discover they weren't really the person you thought they were. In my case, Lenore is seemingly obliviously selfish and uncaring about the well-being of even those closest to her. 4. My freshman year of college, I lived in a 3-person room. Roommate number 1 was great, and we are still friends to this day. Roommate number 2, however, was not so great. I have countless stories about this not-so-great roommate, George, but here I will list a couple of my favorites. These are all true stories. Let me know if I'm missing something, and I am the poopy head here. 1. First day of college, my 2 roommates and I were meeting our suite mates for the first time. They lived in a room conjoined to ours via a bathroom. Our suite mates were in our room, and the 5 of us were talking and getting to know each other. We had been joking around and shooting a foam basketball on my mini-hoop the whole time. George kept pretend blocking my shots, so in a playful sort of way I bounced the foam ball on his head, and then caught it. Please keep in mind this ball is made completely of a soft foam-like material and is no larger than a softball. After I dropped the ball on his head, he immediately turned around and punched me in my cock and balls as hard as he could. Needless to say, I spent the rest of the time meeting our suite mates curled in a ball on the floor in the corner of the room. Okay, I'm going to do these individually. Hellfreezer's note. It might be a foam ball, but don't bounce things off your friends' heads, alright? It's just rude. Now, punching you in the bishop might have been a little bit much, but lesson learned. 2. First semester. I wanted to take a nap in my room, but George did not want me to turn off the lights. I thought this was fair, so instead I decided to hang out in my suite mate's room. After 2 minutes with them, George walks in and sits next to me. I silently get up and go back to my room to take a nap. I turn the lights off, and as I'm getting in bed, they get turned back on. I look around, but nobody is in my room. I get down and turn them off again, only to be met by the same result once I had climbed back in bed. I go to my suite mate's room and ask George why he turned the lights on if he's not in the room. And he said, "My room." I told him that he was right, but it was also me and the other roommate's room. He said that didn't mean he had any less of a right to turn on the lights. I said it's fine if he wants to turn on the lights, but why does he need them on if he isn't in the room? He responded by saying, "I can do whatever I want," albeit with a bit of cursing. I did not get to take a nap or talk to my suite mates that day because whenever I would go take a nap, he would come turn the lights on, and whenever I would go to my suite mate's room, he would follow me in. Okay, Hellfreezer's note. George is insane. There was a hint of that with the ball punching, but he is insane. Literally, there's no logical reason, not even OCD reasons why he would want to turn the lights on when you're in the room, other than he is out of his gourd. Perhaps it's a control issue, perhaps he's trying to dominate you in some weird way. That's his kink, he doesn't need to be sharing it. 3. My suite mates, a couple of friends and I, were planning to go hang out at a friend's house one night, and we ended up making the plans and successfully doing it. Me and my roommate came back the next day, and George glared at us for a while before returning to his homework. Now, I understand that it can be unfair to exclude people, but trust me when I say George was given every opportunity to befriend these people but never did. Nobody wanted him to go to the friend's house that night, so therefore we just didn't tell him about it, so that he wouldn't feel too left out. Anyway, after my roommate left to go work out, George looks at me and says, "I know where you were last night." I ask him what he means, and he says, "I know you went to Freddy's house." I tell him that I wasn't trying to hide that, and he says, "You think you're sneaky, planning stuff without me? Well, you're not." I said I was sorry, and I asked how he even knew where we were. He then admitted to placing his ear against the door and listening to our conversation when we were planning the hangout. He somehow believed that this would make me say, "Oh, you got me," or something, but I was just mortified. This means that every time my roommate and I went out into our suite mate's room, there was a good chance George followed us and listened to everything we said. Yeah, this man is a stalker, and we should all be afraid of him. 4. George and I had been in contact before move-in with our other roommate about who would bring what. I let them both know that I would be bringing the TV and everyone would be able to use it whenever, especially because I do not own a console, so I would only really need it for Netflix or TV. When I got to the room, I set up my TV in front of the couch. George arrived about an hour later, and when he came in the room, he was carrying a TV, smaller than mine, by the way. I told him I thought I would be the one bringing the TV, but he said he thought it would be cool to have 2. I thought this was funny, but there was still no room for another. His solution was to put the TV on the couch in the middle of the room so there would be no space to walk or literally do anything. I obviously objected to this, and said he could maybe put his TV on his desk or in the closet, where there was lots of room. It was a big walk-in closet with room for his TV and a space to sit one person comfortably. He then told me he would not settle for his TV not being in front of the couch. I told him my TV was there, and that he could use it whenever to plug in his PS5. This drove him insane, and he told me that made no sense, and that I would need to move my TV into the closet or have no space to walk in the room. I told him we had agreed on mine being the main TV, as it was bigger, and I had brought it in here and set it up. He continually told me no and said he was not going to move his TV. I gave in and moved my TV into the closet, but little did I know that for the rest of my freshman year of college, I would no longer be allowed to use his TV or sit on the couch when he wanted it. Why couldn't I? Because it was his TV. Long story short, my roommate and I watched Netflix in my closet for the entire semester, and he had to set up his console in the closet because George wouldn't let us play games or use his TV without his permission or an appointment. No comments on this. Crying out loud. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5. Every time George would leave for the weekend, my roommate and I would play Cuphead on his TV, because he wouldn't let us use it when he was there. One weekend I received a text from George while I was eating dinner that he had gotten back to the room, and he wanted to know why I broke his remote. I was confused and texted him saying I didn't break any remotes, and he left me on read. When I got back to the room, he started berating me about breaking his remote while he was gone, and he even accused me of throwing it at the wall because I wanted to make him angry. This obviously did not happen, and as he kept hurling insults and threats at me, I responded by saying that I didn't do anything to his remote. I think it's also funny to point out that when I got back from dinner, I was going to go to the gym to work out, so I took my shorts off and sat on my bed. So this entire time while he was screaming at me and turning red in the face, I was sitting on bed in my underwear. Anyway, after I told him for the 3rd time that I didn't break anything, he screamed at me so loud, he spat all over the floor, his veins popped out, and my friend from across the hall burst into my room and asked if everything was okay, because he heard screaming. He saw that George was beet red and he asked what happened, but George wouldn't speak. I told my friend it was fine. And after he left, George started yapping again. I put some shorts on and left to go work out because I genuinely did not know what to do. Like I said, this is only the tip of the iceberg of George stories, but these are the classics for my roommate and I. We are much happier now, living in a 4-person apartment with 2 of our good friends. Well, all I can say is I am relieved that George is no longer in the picture. Hopefully he's locked up somewhere with large, muscular men with guns to keep an eye on him. Maybe the occasional cattle prod. Sounds harsh, but I think it's best for everyone, especially the rest of the world. On a less jokey note, George obviously needs to be medicated. He needs a therapist, he needs to be medicated. This is not normal behavior. I don't know if you can even put this down to the way he was raised. Maybe he was raised in a very entitled fashion, but I don't think that excuses the violent, irrational anger over something so trivial. 1. I never really thought I would ever be sharing a story, but here we go. For some background, my roommate and I are both juniors in college. We weren't roommates before this past year, junior year, but we met at the start of freshman year and have been best friends since. Also, to preface, both of our freshman year roommates were not issues for either of us, and there is no drama, we are still close. Just wanted to live in different places. My roommate and I share a 1-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom with 2 beds, 1 bathroom, a living room, and a small kitchen. Fall semester, my roommate and I didn't have many issues. We had occasional moments on both sides when we maybe got a bit messy when school was super busy, but nothing crazy. In my opinion, pretty standard. I will say we pay for electric, and it for some reason is only able to be on 1 account and card, which I set up so it's automatic on my card. Quite a few months in the fall, I did not receive payment from my roommate, but I eventually got it all in the winter. In the spring, this semester, I started dating my boyfriend, who I have known since freshman year, and I had been really close friends with him before we started dating. I only bring this up because I don't think that my boyfriend and I had a typical honeymoon phase, like when couples want to hang out every second all the time. I have since we were just friends, and now see him on weekends, and once maybe twice during the week if our schedules are free. We have different hobbies and classes, and that is just what works for us. I understand that other people might have different needs in relationships than me and my boyfriend, but I also think that a line needs to be drawn as to when it starts affecting other people. A few weeks after I started dating my boyfriend, my roommate also got a boyfriend, who has been friends with them since freshman year too. The reason I say friends like that is because for years this now boyfriend of theirs was not in fact a real friend. My roommate actively preyed on his downfall and vice versa, and called him really nasty names, and it was all reciprocated. They are always in competition and never wanted the other to succeed in anything. Even so, I was really happy for them when at first everything seemed to be great. That is, until their relationship started impacting my living situation. They started spending every waking minute with each other, attached at the hip, and quite codependent in my opinion, and all they care about is social media and looking a certain way to other people. It consumes too much of their conversations and, not to air out my roommate's business, but ever since this relationship started, they have been slacking immensely on their schoolwork and have cut out most friends. The personality change is also insane. I just feel like I am looking at two of their boyfriend. Anyways, their boyfriend has his own room in his own apartment. My roommate started coming back to our apartment, sometimes with the boyfriend, creating a mess, and then leaving to go back to the boyfriend's apartment. Mess as in trash everywhere, dirty dishes in the sink when the dishwasher is empty and 2 feet away. And a mess in the bathroom with a bunch of products and clothes everywhere. When my roommate isn't sleeping over there, the boyfriend is coming over to my place and sleeping in our shared room with them. It just feels really weird to me. I have never had my boyfriend sleep over. He has his own apartment where I go when I visit him. Unless my roommate wasn't in town. In my head, it's kinda like PDA since it's a shared room and our beds are only a few feet apart. Sometimes I even wake up and the boyfriend is just sleeping in my roommate's bed and my roommate is sleeping out on the couch in the living room. And it happens during weeknights a lot of the time, and when I have exams, I just feel like it is quite disrespectful and weird. On top of that, my roommate hasn't been buying groceries for weeks and is just consuming what I've purchased, so I actually just altered my diet, so I am now eating all foods my roommate doesn't like, so nothing is stolen. It has just progressively gotten worse. The two of them leave the lights on when they leave, again we pay electric, and I just feel like a damn maid. I have tried to confront this behavior via text because my roommate is never not with their boyfriend at my apartment, and I can't handle a 2 versus 1. And the responses I have received are nothing like how my roommate and best friend used to be or talk. It feels like it's just regurgitated words from their boyfriend, basically, telling me that I have to suck it up and that they don't care. I just don't know where my friend is anymore because it is not the person that I am now dealing with. It just sucks because I miss my friend, and on top of that, I feel so uncomfortable in my own place a lot of the times. I want to create change because I quite honestly can't live like this anymore, and hope and pray that this is just a phase. I also don't want to create an argument, especially when I know this boyfriend is going to make it so difficult and it will turn into a 2 versus 1. I want my friend back, and I want to live comfortably. Any advice? Hellfreezer's note. It's an awful thing, but some people completely push down their own personality when they're in a relationship, and they do whatever their partner wants, in this case, your friend becoming essentially a reflection of their boyfriend. It doesn't sound like a healthy relationship. It's two people that clearly loathe each other, that who knows what happened there to bring them closer together. But it's definitely not healthy. And unfortunately, you'll never get your friend to see sense because you're the villain in this story. You're the one trying to get in the way as far as they're concerned. The only way it's going to change is if the relationship turns sour and they both realize they're not meant to be together. I wish I had a better answer for you than that, because you genuinely do sound like you miss your friend. But right now it's just a waiting game. And they might never change their mind. And if they don't, I'm truly sorry for that. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, episode 15. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button. And if you'd like to get early access to these videos, then you can do that by supporting me on my Patreon page for as little as $1 or more a month. Also linked in the description, you'll find a link to the Hellfreezer Discord if you'd like to join us over there, as well as a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And if you really enjoyed today's video, then why not leave a tip by clicking on the little heart with a $sign underneath and leaving the tip of your choice. Of course, you don't have to do any of that, but I very much appreciate it. Okay, no other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: those of you who fly a lot, do you prefer the hard shell carry-on case or the soft? Which one do you find works better for you? I can see merits to both, but I'm curious what other people's opinions are. Leave your answers in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this, I believe this was in relation to what's the best part of the cake, the cakey part or the frosting. And today's answer comes from Lady Manticore. As for the question of the day, the best part of the cake is eating the cake. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Well, that is certainly correct. Although, as someone else commented, you can have a good cake without frosting, but frosting on its own is just sugar, really. Yummy, yummy sugar. Thank you very much for your answer, Lady Manticore. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.